What's up, everybody? My name is Key Air, and you are watching the important things that really matter. Today, we're going to go into part 2 of Men, is it really worth marrying in the U.S.? Men, is it really worth marrying in the U.S. part 2? Now, let me start off by saying this. This is very, very important information, which I'm going to be giving you today, things that you need to take in consideration before you get married. Very, very important things. You have to understand that the second most important decision that you will ever make is who you pick to be your wife. So you do not want to make this decision a very quick decision. I almost made this decision very, very quick, and I almost got myself in a whole lot of trouble by picking somebody fairly quick without properly vetting them, properly doing research on the person, properly doing research into the person's background. If there is a person that you are thinking very seriously about marrying, you need to do your research as to the person's background. Okay, you need to do your research as to the person's background, how much debt they're in, how many kids they have, if you can find out how many abortions they had, or how much financial debt that they're in, how they acted and performed in past relationships. Very, very good information that you need to check into and that you need to find out about. Some people, which I will say some dummies, I'm not going to mention this particular guy's name, but, first of all, I'll say fair use. I'm not going to mention this particular guy's name. This person is a talk show host who is very, very well known. He's also very, very well known as to being a simp. He's very, very well known for being a simp to a lot of men. And I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I hate to hear this man talk, because it's like this guy's wife has got him so brainwashed and got him under so much control that you can pretty much figure that she got his nuts in her purse. So, but anyway, there's this particular guy. He's a talk show host. You would think that once you have finally made it and you are finally making some good money, that if there's somebody that you want to marry, that you would do some thorough research and thorough background check of the person, because you now have the money to do a thorough background check. Okay? You want to find out how much debt they're really in. You want to find out how many relationships they've been in. You want to find out how they acted and responded in the past to relationships, which is going to give you an indication on how they're going to act and respond to you in this relationship called marriage. Okay, so anyway, this particular talk show host didn't bother to do any of that with all the money that he's making. He didn't bother to do no research into his wife's background. Wife had 2 kids by 2 different family members of the same family. Let me say that again. A particular woman that this guy decided to marry had 2 kids by 2 different men of the same family. And the person was involved in a lot of people that were kind of real shady and maybe in criminal activity and stuff. And so you would think, if you are now a multimillionaire and you have plenty of money to spend, that you would go and pay somebody to do a thorough background check of the person that you're about to marry, especially if you got some money, especially if you got a whole lot of money. Okay, well, this guy didn't do that. And so now he is now pretty much reaping what he sowed. Everybody and their mama know the background of this person that he married, and everybody's looking at him like, are you crazy? You all the money that you making, you didn't bother to pay somebody to do all the research for you? You make enough money to do that. They could have brought you all types of information, which could have determined whether he was going to marry the woman or not. But anyway, I want to say fair use, fair use, fair use. Let me tell you about this other story that you need to know about. There was a female friend of mine that I was kind of working with. I was an engineer at the time, and I think she was an engineer also too. And so we became kind of close, and we were talking about certain things that were going on in our lives. And so one day we were talking, and this particular woman, African-American female, she really had a bad taste in her mouth about her mother. So I'm like, why do you have a really, really bad taste in your mouth concerning your mother? You would talk about her mother and her whole face would change. Just, she really disliked her mother tremendously. So I'm like, okay, well, why do you dislike your mother tremendously, and what happened? So she set up and told me her mother came home from work one day and told the father, out of the blue, she didn't want to be married no more. The father's like, what do you mean you don't want to be married no more? The wife was like, I don't want to be married no more. She want to go out and be in the street and have fun. Once again, she wants to go out, be in the street with her girlfriends and have fun. And so this was her reason for leaving. Forget the marriage vows. Forget all the marriage vows that were made before God Almighty, the creator of the universe. Forget all those marriage vows. She wants to be out in the street and have fun. These were her words. This is what she wanted. And so this particular woman, who was a friend of mine, told me she really disliked her mother. And I think it even got to the point where she hated her mother because she seen what her mother did to her father, which was come home one day, said, I don't want to be married no more. And then next thing you know, her mother disappeared. So the father, who was African-American male, had to raise the kids all by himself because his wife didn't have enough respect for herself and enough respect for him to stay in the marriage, work it out, because they had children. She just up to decide she just wanted to leave. Okay, so that's that is a second story that I want to tell you. You want to go back to the first video, part 1, so you can hear the first story I was talking about, because it's really serious. As I stated before, this one particular foundation had tested about 10,000 women. They went and found research on so many different things as far as to predict whether a marriage is going to last or not based upon how many partners the woman has. Okay, so very, very extremely important. And they found out, this particular foundation found out that what the reason was why most women left their husbands was really no reason. They just up and left, forget the marriage vows, forget the vows before God, and they just went and did their own things. And so basically, in a nutshell, it affected the children tremendously, that the children got to the point where they almost hated their mother for what they did to the father. So these are things you got to take into consideration, because there are people that are going to come, that may come back later on and say, I just don't want to be married no more. You know, they can care less what God thinks, but there's going to be a time that's going to come real soon. Oh, one of the things I want to say, one of the things I noticed by ladies that want to sit up here and just leave their husbands for no reasons, a lot of times, the money that they took from their husband, which they did not have until they got married to the person, the money that they took, basically stole from their husband. You will find that many of these ladies, as they get older, they will be broke as a joke. Many of them will be in poverty, for which goes along what I was stating before, is that there is a spiritual law called the law of reaping and sowing. The law of reaping and sowing is the same law that takes place when a farmer plants a seed into a ground, like a seed of corn, and is expecting corn to grow. You have people out here that will do evil to people and think that it will not come back upon them. But according to the law of reaping and sowing, which is in the Bible, whatever things that you do good to a person, or whatever things you do evil to a person will eventually come back to you. And a lot of people who do evil to other people, a lot of times they will have financial problems later on down the line. It could be sooner, it could be later. Like in a particular case, where the last video that I put out, the woman, she wanted to leave her husband for no particular reason except for she wanted to go hang with her girlfriends and have fun and forget being married. She was deliberately destroyed her family on purpose for no particular reason. Well, she got out there, and it wasn't too long she got out there, she ran into some men. She ran into a guy that was whooping her behind, beating her ass on a regular basis, to the point to where she called the ex-husband to try to come back home. He's like, no, you cannot come back home. You stay out there and you continue to get your butt whooped because you decided to leave the family because you wanted to have fun. So how's the fun department going now? I guess it cannot be too, too fun if she's getting beat up on a regular basis. I'm not glamorizing that in any way, shape, form, or fashion. I don't want you to take it negatively. I'm just telling you what ends up happening to people. The evil that they do to other people eventually comes back to them. It could come back to them by getting beat up on a regular basis. It can come back to these people by them coming up with all types of sicknesses, diseases later on down the line. It could be early, it could be later than that, to where they'll come up with sicknesses, diseases. Or a lot of times you'll find people that just up and leave their husband and try to take half the husband's money. You'll find out they'll have all types of financial problems later on down the road. These people, these women will have all types of financial problems. I know a lady right now that left her husband. She wanted to be in the street. She left her husband, took half his stuff, took half the money from the house, half the equity. She just had all this money. And guess what ended up happening? She blew all of that money. And now, just like I said before, this woman is darn near in abject poverty and had the audacity to call the ex-husband after she done stole half his money and say, years later, can we get back together? Of course you know what he said. Oh no, we can't get back together. You must have forgot that you took all this money from me when you decided to leave. No, you can't come back. And so this is what happens to a lot of ladies who have stole money from their husbands. This is what happened to a lot of ladies who have stolen money from their husbands through the divorce process. Money that they never had themselves when they came into the marriage. A lot of these ladies end up in poverty. And I know, and it's not just one lady that I know who is in poverty. I know a number of other ladies that are in poverty right now. They left the husbands for little to no reasons, which is what this foundation found out. So these are things you need to be taking into consideration before you walk down that aisle, before you marry somebody. You need to do a thorough background check. You need to do a thorough background check as far as how much debt they're in, because there are people that will sit and say, oh, I only have about $10,000 worth of debt. You come find out they got $50,000 worth of debt. They might have $200,000 worth of debt. Part of that debt includes student loan debt, okay? And a lot of times, if you sit up here and you do some research on some people, you find out they might be in $150,000 worth of student loan debt, $200,000 of student loan debt. They might be in $40,000 or $50,000 in credit card debt. And if they have a kid, it takes over $300,000 to raise a child up to 18 years old. So some people that you run into, if you take up the debt from the child, the credit card debt, and the student loan debt, and you add all those debts up, you might find that the woman that you want to marry might be in $500,000 or $600,000 or $700,000 in debt, period. So from those three areas, from the child, raising of the child, student loan debt, and credit card debt. So anyway, you need to do your background check. You need to find out as much as they can. You need to ask yourself, are they of the same religion as you? You sit up here and think that it shouldn't matter what religion you are, what you are. It matters 100%, okay? How are you gonna be a Christian and you're gonna marry somebody that's Buddhist. How you gonna train the kids? Okay. Some might want to be a Buddhist, some might want to be a Christian, some might want to mix together Buddhism with Christianity, which is going to really make them sound crazy. So anyway, please like, please share, please subscribe. And what I want you to do is go to part 3 of Men Is It Worth Marrying in the U.S. And peace.